Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'd like to begin by congratulating Ivan McKee on securing this debate, and also want to welcome the tone that Ivan McKee took, which I thought was very positive and energetic. And sometimes it's easy in Parliament, and I imagine in government, in terms of dealing with the day-to-day business, to almost become managerial and having to just deal with what's in front of you. But as a role, we do have to be setting a vision and an agenda for the future. And while I recognise the comments that Jamie Halcrow-Johnson made, suggesting it's somewhere between tomorrow's world and the Jetsons, Ivan McKee's motion makes reference to 2030. That's only 12 years hence. If we think 12 years ago, how many of us were using Twitter, Facebook, other social media platforms, who would have predicted the disruptive impact that Netflix has had, not just on how we consume digital content, but indeed how digital content is generated? Now, of course, the issue of automation we're speaking about is about the actual way in which vehicles would be piloted by computers as opposed to people. But of course, automation has been with the automobile industry for a long time. Indeed, the automation of the manufacturing of automobiles has been a significant part, and that's something I can very much relate to. My constituency of Renfrewshire South is home to Linwood, which is synonymous with a car plant which being closed down because it was deemed to be economically inefficient, and all of the huge unemployment and issues that followed forth from that. So I think the concerns about disruption and the impact upon existing jobs are very serious concerns that we must take carefully. I think it's important that we do not react in an alarmist fashion, but we must take cognizance of these concerns. And I think Ivan McKee's suggestions about horizon scanning and looking forward to make sure that we are preparing and looking at opportunities to reskill and retraining are very important indeed. I think one of the things I want to touch upon is some of the wider economic opportunities that this revolution will be, because it will necessitate the use of existing technologies, adaptations of existing technologies, and potentially the development of new technologies. One such example is LiDAR, the light detection and ranging sensors, which are absolutely essential and fundamental for the way in which many driverless cars work. They essentially use laser, rather like a much more efficient and faster version of sonar. They use light pulses to map surroundings. But what's happening, has been occurring lately, is there's been such demand for LiDAR that producers of these devices have been struggling to keep up, and there's been 6 months delays. And what this has resulted is in a lot of startups are potentially going to disrupt that market by moving to more solid-state technologies. Scotland, of course, has had a very strong sector in lasers and sensors, and I'd be always keen to look at ways in which our own economy can benefit from the actual manufacturing of these devices, as the First Minister has stated out, not just to be a consumer of the products of the future, but to actually be actively developing and engaging with them. So there's real economic opportunities there, but there's also, of course, the economic threats that I alluded to already. What the threats pose to the haulage industry, to public transport, bus drivers, taxi drivers, delivery drivers, and how that interacts with the gig economy. And that speaks to broader issues about how we design our social security system, our taxation system, certainly.
JB Green.
I think the member's making some very interesting points, actually, around the types of things that we use cars for. Does it accept, actually, that there is a move, not to necessarily to driverless vehicles through this, but actually to drones? And that market, it could potentially replace some of that driving per se.
Mr Arthur.
Absolutely. I think that's an excellent point. We've seen some of the work that Amazon's already doing, pioneering that. So again, we cannot just look at this in isolation. There was one other point I just wanted to pick up before closing. I thought it was a very interesting point that Ivan made, which is actually the flip side. We look at the gig economy as ultimately being a threat, but I think one of the ideas that Ivan put forward was the idea where you can see your driverless vehicle as an asset to be monetised by using it and letting it out. So again, that will raise concerns about, raise issues about how we regulate that particular market. And again, I think what's very important, and what other colleagues have echoed this remark as well, is that we have to make sure that the benefits that come from driverless vehicles and increased automation are actually enjoyed by all, and not just simply by the companies who are at the moment at the cutting edge and putting them forward, and that all society can benefit from this, including the wider social benefits as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.